Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of Box Office Talk. This is the show where I break down what happened at the box office, see if my predictions for the top 5 are correct, then make predictions for next week's top 5. So let's get right on into it. Last week I predicted that number 1 would be Barbie, number 2 would be Meg 2, The Trench, number 3 would be Oppenheimer, number 4 would be Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem, and number 5 would be The Last Voyage of the Demeter. And I unfortunately only got 2 out of 5 of my predictions right because of something that I probably should have seen coming. In fact, here are the shout-outs. Plenty of you did see coming and guessed correctly. So congratulations to all of you. You nailed it, where I probably should have, but didn't even factor in that it was a possibility that the obvious was going to happen. So let's go over what happened in the overall top 10. Number 1 was, of course, once again, Barbie, making $33 million, still having incredible hold after incredible hold week to week. It adds to a domestic total now of $526 million. So not only is that incredible that it is passed over 500 million domestically, for the year 2023 it is now behind the Super Mario Bros. Movie's domestic run by $48 million. For the all-time domestic runs list, it has outgrossed the following: Star Wars A New Hope by 66 million, Star Wars The Phantom Menace by 52 million, Frozen 2 by 49 million, Finding Dory by 40 million, the 2017 Beauty and the Beast film by 22 million, and The Rise of Skywalker by 11 million. So now it is at the number 18 spot for the greatest domestic runs of all time. It is now behind Rogue One's number 17 spot by 7 million, which we'll be seeing it outgross, as well as probably a couple other movies ahead of it as well. So it's just inching closer to it. It's definitely going to break 600 million domestically, which is pretty goddamn special to say the least. I believe also, if it hasn't already, it's about to, go on track to be the highest grossing Warner Brothers film ever. I believe it worldwide, it has already outgrossed The Dark Knight there. I think domestically it still has a little bit ways to go, or it already has. Either way, it's about to, take over Warner Brothers all-time best performing films financially. So that's pretty incredible. Worldwide, though, let's take a look at it, because it is now sitting at $1,183,000,000. So now it is behind the Super Mario run by $175 million. We'll be seeing it outgross it very soon. Highest grossing film of 2023 inbound. And then for the all-time worldwide list, it jumped up quite a bit. So it would have taken me forever to read out all of the other films that it outgrossed and how much it did. So we're just going to jump ahead to where it's at right now, because right now it has outgrossed the first Minions by 26 million. So it is at number 25 for the all-time worldwide runs list, and it is behind Iron Man 3 by 32 million, and then it's at number 24, and we'll probably see it outgross a bunch of other movies as well, because it's at a point where a lot of the billions are kind of close together, but because Barbie still has a lot of great traction, it's just plowing right through a lot of them. So it's going to be quite interesting to see where this ends up, because my what a run. It's honestly almost kind of boring to talk about it, because it's like, how many other ways can I say that this movie is breaking every single record known to mankind? Let's move on to number 2, which is Oppenheimer, bouncing right back up to the number 2 spot. It made $18 million this weekend, adding to a domestic total of $264 million. So for the Christopher Nolan list, it is still behind Inception by $28 million. So still a little bit ways to go there for the domestic runs, outgrossing more for the Nolan list. But worldwide, now that it is sitting at $649 million, on the fast track to breaking $700 million worldwide, which is pretty spectacular. It has outgrossed Interstellar by $2 million and now sits behind Inception by $79 million. So there you go. It now has to get past Inception for the Christopher Nolan films ranking, the financial rankings, but it is still looking very good, and it was able to bounce back from being knocked down to number 3, overtaking the Meg once again. So you may be wondering, so the Meg is number 3? No, number 3 was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem, which is a pretty pleasant surprise. It had a 40% drop off from where it opened last weekend, which is not horrible to say the least. It's still doing solid. It made $15 million for this weekend, which now adds to a domestic total of $72 million. million. That means it has outgrossed TMNT by $18 million, and it now needs $6 million until it outgrosses Secret of the Ooze. Obviously, we're going to be seeing that happen. Also, it means that it is squeaked by the initial production budget of $70 million with this total. So it is still not there at the doubling point, and worldwide, as you can see, it is only sitting at $94 million. So we still have about $46 million more to go until they officially double that budget. And I think with the hold it's been having and the word of mouth that's spread about this movie in particular, we'll be seeing it get to that point. I just don't know if any other places worldwide will bump it up enough where it's like, actually it doubled its budget and it's on its way to triple it or whatever. I hope this is a good sign that we'll be seeing more of these of this series of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles films, though. I know they maybe mentioned like we're going to do like a TV show with the same voice cast or something like that. Either way, I'd like to see more of it because this was a pretty solid, pretty good Ninja Turtles movie, you know? And so far it's looking like they're on the right track here, especially with the budget being as low as it is. And for what we know, according to the director and Seth Rogen, they treated the animators right, which is, you know, a great improvement over what happened over the last Seth Rogen produced animated project, Sausage Party. Sorry, not last animated project, the last theatrical animated project. So, you know, improvements, you know, doing great over here. As far as the worldwide rankings, it has outgrossed Secret of the Ooze by 16 million and now needs 2 million until it outgrosses TMNT. So, you know, flip-flopping the achievements in the domestic and worldwide lists. Let's move on to number 4, which was Meg 2: The Trench, which didn't have like a catastrophic drop off. It was just a little over 50, close to 60% drop, but that's not, we've seen worse, obviously. This movie made $12 million this weekend, which now adds to a domestic total of 54, so it's still behind the original Meg by 91 million at this point. Still very doubtful that it's actually going to get to that point. Worldwide, it is now sitting, though, at 256 million, so technically, if the budget is to be believed of 129 million, although I did see Wikipedia recently updated, it's like 129 to 139, but we'll stick with 129 just for simplicity's sake. It is 2 million away, now that it's sitting at 256 million, it is 2 million away from doubling that $129 million budget. So even if it's still behind the first film worldwide now by 271 million, and it's looking like it's probably not going to outgross that in the slightest, it's about to double its budget. And, you know, even with the drop off domestically, if it keeps up with the combined domestic and worldwide totals, it will definitely, you know, cross over 300 million, border on 400 million. So they're in a pretty good spot, to say the least. We may be getting Meg 3 in the next 5 years. I don't think it'll be immediate if they really do decide to do it, but so all in all, a pretty solid top 4 of pretty good money makers here. Even if Ninja Turtles hasn't doubled its budget yet, you know, it's on the track to. Meg 2 hasn't officially yet, especially if the budget is closer to 139 like Wikipedia just updated. But, you know, either way, it's still on the right track here. Number 5, though, we're going to bring it down a little bit. The Last Voyage of the Demeter, for, you know, all intents and purposes, a pretty solid, decent horror film based off of one chapter of the Dracula Bram Stoker novel. It only made $6 million on its opening weekend. Now, this has a budget of $45 million, which normally is pretty modest and, you know, pretty normal, and you would expect a big turnout, a big horror movie turnout, and they would probably double that budget instantly. But right now, they don't have a worldwide total. I'm not sure how many people really knew this movie was coming out. Like, obviously, you know, there's some posters and there's some trailers before other movies, but I'm not sure how many people had it committed to memory. Like, all right, don't forget, it's coming out on this date. Obviously, I don't know how much the actor strike has really affected people's awareness. You know, you don't have the cast and crew going around, but, you know, that's definitely a factor. That's definitely a factor. But just in general, even if it did have that little bit of push, I don't know how much more it would have helped. For the director, the last film they made was Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, and obviously this had an opening 14 million below that. This is much lower than how that movie opened, and it now needs 62 million domestically if it's going to outgross that, which it's not going to do. Maybe there's a chance for worldwide numbers to boost it up, but as far as doubling that $45 million budget, it's not looking great, which is unfortunate because it is a solid movie. It's definitely hurt by the fact, at least for me, I wasn't like, oh my gosh, people gotta see this. People really need to know that there's a new great horror movie out there and it's Dracula. It's based off the one chapter. I walked out going like, yeah, you know, it was kind of like exactly kind of where I thought it would end up. You know, I walked in kind of thinking like, at the very least, I'm hoping that it's just decent and just an enjoyable, solid horror movie, and it was. You know, there's nothing really else to it, and I think maybe that's potentially hurting any more word of mouth about it, because obviously horror fans, they're going to promote it no matter what. But as far as like horror fans who really love to cheer on the fact, like another movie we'll talk about in a little bit, like to cheer on the fact that there's something great out there, or casual audiences who maybe horror isn't their preferred genre, but they love seeing a really great one. This isn't really that. So let's move on to number 6, which is Haunted Mansion. Jesus Christ, the failure of this movie is still baffling to me, although I'm sure they want higher Disney Plus numbers instead around October, which is still baffling. I talked about it last week, doesn't matter. It made $5.6 million, adding to a domestic total of $52 million, so it is still $23 million away from the original Haunted Mansion. It's doubtful it's even going to get there. Worldwide, it is sitting at $75 million, so that places it $80 million behind the original with Eddie Murphy. And still, this is still nowhere close to even crossing over the initial production budget of $150 million, nowhere close to doubling that. It's the Disney live action curse, not counting a lot of their other animated remakes where they remake animated films. A lot of their actual live action ones don't really do that well. Do I need to mention John Carter? Do I need to mention Tomorrowland? And yes, this isn't as big of a flop as those ones are, but still, it's just another one. But now they're banking on, I'm assuming they're banking on a Disney Plus spike in October. Baffling. Let's move on to something that's actually worth celebrating. Number 7, which is Talk to Me. Holding over so strongly, and this is gonna work out so well for A24. They've already announced a sequel, Talk to Me. Now the TO is TWO. The hand is now in the middle of the logo, and it's forming a 2. It's fantastic. Can't wait to see what they do, because it was a really great movie. But it made $5.1 million, adding to a domestic total of $31 million. So for the A24 domestic list, it has outgrossed Ex Machina and The Witch by $6 million, and Moonlight and Midsummer by $4 million, and it now needs $13 million until it outgrosses Hereditary. Worldwide, there's a little bit of a boost now that it's sitting at $34 million. So where that places it is that it's $3 million over Spring Breakers, $2 million away from Room. So see, this is what I mean when it comes to not just Haunted Mansion, but also Last Voyage at the Demeter. Talk to Me was one where people were excited to tell other people about, you gotta go see this. This is crazy. Oh my gosh, this is such a great movie, and it's so dark, and it's, oh my gosh. This had people talking, this had people excited, and that word of mouth spread. And you've seen, even though it, didn't crack in the top 5, in the bottom 5 though, it's been really thriving, especially when you have that budget of $4.5 million. So whoever needs to learn more lessons here. Obviously, there's the other factors that brought the downfall of Demeter and Haunted Mansion that Talk to Me just is not in the same realm as. But still, there's still other lessons to be learned from some of these other smaller budgeted movies with, creatives at the helm that are just let loose, Let's move on to number 8, which is Sound of Freedom, which we're not going to spend too much time on, obviously, as I have not been. I'm just glad that it's finally not in the top 5 anymore. Sorry, not to be ooh, controversial, blah, 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 keep talking about it, but you said you wouldn't, blah. I don't care. I know that makes me hypocritical, but I genuinely don't care. It made $4.8 million this weekend, though, adding to a domestic total of $172 million. I'm just glad that it didn't thrive enough to get to $200 million domestically. Obviously it's a success, or who knows how much of a success, but at least it never got to $200 million domestically, and it's about to leave the top 10. Huzzah. Sorry if that offended you. Let's move on to number 9, Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1, making only $4 million this weekend, adding to a domestic total of $159 million. So it is still behind the first Mission Impossible by $21 million, and worldwide, it has now, crossed over $500 million. It is sitting at $522 million, so that is still obviously very good for this film, but it still has it behind Mission Impossible 2 by $27 million, so it is still... It's behind these other ones that it probably should have blasted through at this point. I hate to say that it is suffering from a Fast and Furious problem as far as how long running the franchise is, and now what's being promised is a really big send-off, or at least initially it was, is now kind of met with this kind of financial reaction. Critically and, audience-wise, people are still loving this movie, the people that have seen it, but financially it just isn't really connecting like some of the other ones, some of the other highs the franchise has had. So yeah, it's just still a really big bummer. It is at this point $58 million away from doubling its $290 million budget at this point. But of course, as we all know about these other tentpole movies, is that sometimes doubling isn't exactly great. They need to do a little bit more. So I would estimate considering where their doubling point is, maybe they would need like, and gosh, this could be even more as well, 700, 800 million to be considered to like really break even or make a profit. I don't know specifics. I don't know how many people outside of the industry covering box office do. It's all guesses, but it just doesn't look good. And finally, closing out the video, number 10, Jailer, movie that came out of nowhere. Have no idea what this is, but apparently it's doing pretty well. It made $2 million domestically this weekend, adding to a domestic total of $4 million. And this is on a budget of 200 crore, but apparently, because I checked Wikipedia, like, what is this movie? And it says something different than what it says on the numbers. Worldwide, it is estimated to have made 215 crore at this point. So I don't know, like, that's 15, that's 15 over the budget that has it listed. So I'm assuming it's doing pretty well. I don't know, because I'm stupid. Now it's time for the fun part, the predictions for next week's top 5. Number 1, I've got to go with Blue Beetle just because of the uptick in the estimates at this point, saying like, oh, maybe it's actually going to make 30 million on its opening weekend. So I think it will have a chance to slip past Barbie. I know some people may have been skeptical, but I think a DC film could take this one. Number 2, I think will be Barbie though. Number 3, I think Strays has enough comedy hype around it where it'll get in. And then number 4, Oppenheimer. And then number 5, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Mutant Mayhem. But what are your predictions for next week's top 5? Leave them in the comments below. And as always, thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe. I'm Jackson Fulcher. See you guys next time.